After Aja summons a second wind from nowhere, she starts to use all of Bull's tactics against her. She is weaponizing the trash can. She is pelting the nunchucks. But all is halted when Bull pulls out a pair of scissors and starts stabbing at Aja's arms over and over until they draw blood. There's nowhere for Aja to run. She's stuck in the cage with the bull. My name is Alexa, and this is That Wrestling Wench.
Bull Nakano!
Today I'm super excited to get to this topic that I've wanted to cover since I started this podcast. Bull Nakano is so many people's favorite women wrestler and favorite wrestler in general. She's an icon of the sport, but in a multitude of ways. Athletically, her hard-hitting style and relentlessness is a presence to witness, even on tape or film. Creatively, the character she built, like a sculptor with clay, was one of the most unique that had ever been seen. And the way that she wrapped it all together and presented it to the audience was absolutely unique and horrifying. About developing her character, Bull Nakano, Kiko quotes, "I wanted to be someone that wasn't human, wasn't a woman, wasn't a man, wasn't of this world." That was Bull Nakano. And at 15 years old, Kiko Nakano already knew that she wanted to wrestle. It was 1983, and it's quite common at this time for Japanese wrestlers to start training at that age, and even now. I mean, just on this show alone, this has come up before. Some other women who did the same were Megumi Kudo, Aja Kong, of course, Kagetsu, but I know that there's even more I can't think of off the top of my head. It's very common to go from junior high school to mentoring or menteeing in the job that you were going to take. And Kiko said that after junior high school finished, there wasn't very many options that she had as a woman in Japan. She could either go to high school, she could be a beautician, or she could be a woman wrestler. So she chose the latter, obviously. She said her mom was incredibly encouraging at first and actually sent the form in for her. And her father thought that she needed to learn some discipline, so he thought that she would go and would give up and come home, but she didn't. Entering AJW, All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling, in 1983 was quite a time to be there. Wrestler Dam Matsumoto had established her faction Atrocious Alliance, or in Japanese, Gokuaku Dome. And Atrocious Alliance would come to have a legendary feud with the Crush Gals in the promotion. The Crush Gals were Chigusa Nagayo and Lioness Asuka, and they were some of the biggest baby faces of all baby faces in pro wrestling. And their heroicism made Atrocious Alliance look all the more evil. And about working with these two icons in her early career, Kiko Nakano would later quote, "Fighting Chigusa Nagayo and Lioness Asuka was tough, but it was a good learning experience. Being able to perform in so many fans gave me confidence for the rest of my life." And although Kiko had expressed wanting to be a babyface at first, like that of the Crush Gals, as I discussed in my Aja Kong episode, anyone who doesn't fall into the thin or skinny category, in especially Joshi, but all of professional wrestling, gets placed as a villain or a heel. Maybe left over from the carnival or circus days, or maybe it's just something ingrained into society that we've done that's just like a fat phobic thing. But it is what happened, and Bull was billed as 200 pounds, and she was 5'7". But They ended up naming her Bull, like bulldozer, and it was because of the way that she flattened her opponents. I thought maybe it would be like a bull like the animal, but okay. Sure, bulldozer. And although she was only 5'7", which really isn't that tall, with the addition of her signature look, her electric blue hair standing straight up above her head, it made her look staggeringly tall, 6 feet or more. And like her mentor, Bull's presence in the ring was intimidating, even as a kid, and her signature hard-hitting style came about quickly in her training. It was only after a year of training at all at AJW that she won the junior championship, and she held that title for 8 whole months. In 1985, the promotion drew some ratings that have never been touched by North American wrestling audiences. During some of the Crush Gals and Atrocious Alliance feuds, the ratings exploded at a 12.3 on Fuji TV, which truly has never been touched even now in North America. They were incredibly famous, pop stars. And at only 17, Nakano got the chance to become the AJW champion, which she held the title for 3 whole years. She and Matsumoto would evolve their relationship, and they had a quick rivalry in 1986. And this is a soundbite of their match to show you the screams that would ensue. This is Matsumoto chasing fans with a stick as they run away from her in terror. That smacking sound you can hear is her chasing the audience with kendo sticks as they scream and run. It is a very worthwhile watch. It's a match between Matsumoto and Bull Nakano. It's on YouTube. I recommend it highly. But their feud didn't last too long because they did a run in WWF together only a year later in 1987. So Bull and Matsumoto got a chance to have about 2 matches, I think. I think that they were known as the Devils of Japan or something weird like that. But it was a quick stint, but it is something that caught Bull Nakano's eye and she kept in mind for her future. Because it was a really quick run at WWF, and when they got back to AJW, there was a new member for the Atrocious Alliance. It was a young Erika Shishido, who is also known, of course, as Aja Kong. And when Matsumoto retired in 1988, Bull took over as the next leader of the heel faction, and she quickly turned on Aja Kong and incited a legendary rivalry. One of the most amazing matches I have ever seen personally is in the year 1990, and it's a cage match between Bull and Aja Kong. And I'm going to recite some of the details because I think it's extraordinary, and I would like to paint a visceral picture if I can. Bull begins to drip blood on the mat within the first 3 minutes of this match. All the while, Aja is giving her vicious spinning back fists over and over again, and Bull is just eating them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. She is eating them. A fan throws a steel trash can into the ring, and Bull begins to drop it over Aja's head. 1, 2, 3, 4, like 10 times until she finally falls to the ground. The hits make you wince from the other side of your screen. But it didn't stop there. Someone throws in 2 nunchucks over the top of the cage, which Bull catches with ease, and she starts slinging them around like she is a master. She hits Aja over and over while she screams in return, and she then whips her on the side of the head, and all of a sudden Aja is bleeding. And after Aja summons a second wind, she starts to use all of Bull's previous tactics against her. She's weaponizing the trash can, she is pelting the nunchucks, but all is halted when Bull pulls out a pair of scissors and starts stabbing at Aja's arms. This is halfway through the match. Alundra Blaze is on the outside of the ring getting into fights and her nose gets busted open. And this all happens as Aja starts to wrap Bull's neck up with a rope and choke her. This match is an eye for an eye, though, because Bull later gets her chance to wrap Aja up in a chain and chokes her and traps her there. As they're trying to exit the cage to win the match, the crowd is going absolutely mad. After climbing the top, instead of exiting and ending the match and winning, Bull turns towards the ring 10 feet below her and does her signature leg drop off the top of the cage and onto Aja's chest. Bull immediately jumps up, wasting no time. She climbs over the cage and she wins. It might be one of the craziest matches I've ever seen. And after that match stopped, their rivalry didn't end in itself, because just the next year, 1991, Bull Nakano and Kyoko Inoue beat Aja Kong and another formidable in-ring presence, Bison Kimura, in a hair versus hair match. Nakano later said that actually Kyoko Inoue was one of the most talented wrestlers she ever faced in the ring or worked with. This is all happening while Bull is the longest reigning WWWA champion at over 1,057 days, and this is all until she's beaten by Aja Kong, her already longtime rival. And Aja was also the first black woman to win that title in over 17 years, since Sandy Parker had left the company in the 70s. Bull was only 20 years old as all this happened. She was already an accoladed performer. She had the career of a veteran, and she was only 20. She was kind of like Saraya, like Paige. The career kind of mirrors each other similarly. And Bull wasn't done. She wanted to expand her career in North America, so her loss really couldn't have come at a better time. It was June of the same year, and she began another historic run, and it was over at CMLL in Mexico, where she became the first ever World Women's Champion, and she retained the title for almost a year. After her belt was taken from her by Xochitl Hamada, Nakano made her way back to the company she worked at in her teens, the WWF. It was 1994 when Bull started her run there again, and she immediately went after Alundra Blaze's title. Bull debuted by the side of an aesthetically similar and similarly also an icon, Luna Vachon, whom I have covered on this show before, shameless plug, and Bull debuted as an associate of hers. At that time in the company, the women's division was essentially centered around Alundra Blaze. This is something I've talked about a lot before, how the WWF kind of ignored the rest of their female talent and only took use of Alundra Blaze, and it was kind of exhausting for fans. They wanted some different people to see, and Bull Nakano was kind of an incredible sigh of relief, and Alundra deserved formidable opponents. It was 1994 SummerSlam when Alundra and Bull went at it in a championship match that Blaze retained, but just a few months after that in Tokyo, it was the famous and historic Big Egg Wrestling Universe event, and that is when Nakano took Alundra's title off of her in an amazing win. The match is sick. It's on YouTube. I highly recommend watching it. 5 months later, though, Alundra took her title back at a Monday Night Raw show. And at first, writers wanted to continue Bull's run, and they wanted her to feud with the likes of Bertha Faye, Monster Ripper. But unfortunately, that was cut short when Nakano was arrested. She was allegedly found with cocaine, and the WWF released her. Later in her life, Kiko would tell fans that she had struggled with alcohol dependency at this time and ended up having to go to the hospital for liver cirrhosis later in her life because of the severe drinking she had been doing, and it wasn't a very good experience for her, a situation. She said that alcohol was kind of a hard thing for her, and she now doesn't drink anymore, especially since her hospitalization, and she's okay, but I just wanted to mention that as a piece of her more recent history. But even though the WWF released her, when Alundra Blaze became Medusa at WCW, she threw that WWF women's title in the trash can, as we know, on live television, and Bull came for one last match against this great rival. In 1995, Nakano was a part of the infamous Collision in Korea, which in New Japan Pro Wrestling and WCW teamed up for an event in Pyongyang in North Korea. It had a record-breaking 150,000 people in attendance, which is still the highest record of any pay-per-view in history. There's a really interesting episode of Dark Side of the Ring about it for anyone who is interested and hasn't seen that already. But at the event, Bull and Akira Hokuto defeated Manami Toyota and Mariko Yoshida in a tag team match, and the speed with which these four people wrestle each other. Rivals wrestling matches today, the back-to-back-to-back moves, one after another. It is so impressive. But at this time in Bull's career, she had been wrestling for almost 15 years already, and her injuries were really starting to add up. Her hard-hitting style was not easy to maintain, and you can tell by just watching her. It is a gnarly thing to see. And after having all these injuries kind of accumulate, she never really got a chance to have her actual retirement match, which is the custom for most wrestlers. Kiko went on after her career to write weight loss cookbooks, and she became a professional golfer in 1998. She opened her own restaurant in Japan called Bulchan, and life just went on. But in 2011, though, she decided it was time for that retirement match, and she was going to do it right. And I must say, this event had everything. It was called Empress, and it took place on her 44th birthday, January 8th, 2012. Kiko celebrated her career, but also really uplifted those coming after her. She had young talent with her. She recreated spots from some of her most famous matches with videos of the matches themselves projected behind her. And at the end of the event, she got married in front of everybody. What a show. I think it's amazing. And since then, she's done commentary for Stardom, a company that, of course, touches fans' hearts, and she has appeared with some women wrestlers in Rise. And she still is surrounding herself with professional wrestling and with Joshi, and she is such an icon of this sport. And I know she's brought up a lot and she's so many people's favorite wrestler, but I think that we should celebrate her at any moment that we get. And I just wanted to take this chance to talk about her because she's so incredible. And I know this is a little bit of a crazy episode, a little hectic, but kind of people's lives are never linear and things kind of just end up being a little hectic at the end of these episodes. But I hope that she does more, and I hope we hear more from her because she's such an icon and a legend. And I want to say thank you so much for listening if you got this far. That Wrestling Wench is put together and created by me, Alexa Pruitt, and the music is by Kreider Dane of Helter Skelter Music Productions. If you like what you hear, please join me again. And thank you so much.